Welcome to the F1 News Zone, the show where we round up the biggest stories in Formula 1 right now. F1 is officially in its off-season, but there's plenty of stories to keep us going into the new year. This week we look why Yuki Tsunoda needs to leave the Red Bull Racing family before 2026. We give our take for which 2025 Formula 1 rookie will impress us the most next season. Plus, we go into some F1 explainer videos as well, including what is left foot braking. All that and a whole lot more is coming up in today's show. Let's dive in. So Liam Lawson has been promoted from RB up to the senior Red Bull team for the 2025 season. He'll partner Max Verstappen, and this was a move that in truth we knew was coming for some time. We knew that if Sergio Perez was going to be fired from Red Bull, that it was most likely going to be Liam Lawson that replaced him. And I think that's part of the reason why they wanted to bring him in probably as well, RB, just for half a season to get an idea of, basically how good he is and, how good he is right now as well, because he obviously did compete in 2023 as well. Again, that was quite some time ago before he actually made his second debut, if you will, his return to Formula 1. And I'm very excited to see Liam Lawson in that seat for sure. But the flip side of this coin is the fact that Yuki Tsunoda has been ignored for this promotion. And Tsunoda has 4 seasons of experience under his belt at RB. Liam Lawson, even if you combine all of his race starts from 23 and 24, you've only got about 11 races, which is around half a season these days in Formula 1. Indeed, that is actually less than half a season next season because there's 24 races just like there was this season as well. But I wanted to talk about Tsunoda because I've got some thoughts on this, and whether you think the decision to promote Lawson instead of Tsunoda is right or wrong, I firmly believe now that Tsunoda needs to get out of that Red Bull organization. I'll explain what I mean by that. Now, of course, Tsunoda should be grateful to Red Bull for, supporting him financially through his junior career, giving him his shot in Formula 1 at the AlphaTauri team in 2021 when he made his debut. But now, instead of actually enabling him to have a chance in Formula 1, I actually think now that they're holding him back a little bit. Now, of course, he does have the seat for 2025, and in theory, he's going to be there for the foreseeable future, but I feel like he should go, to be honest with you. Not from Red Bull's point of view. I don't think that he's done badly. I think he's done good. I think he's done really good, to be honest, especially recently. But whether you think it's correct that, Red Bull have this view that Tsunoda is unstable, that he's inconsistent, that he's not ready to be put into that top team, I'm not going to debate that, right? That's kind of irrelevant here, because I feel like at this point, with him obviously being overlooked, he's never going to get that promotion to Red Bull. Because for me, honestly, I will just weigh in on that a little bit. Honestly, I don't think that he's as unstable as what they're trying to make him out to be. I feel like he's matured a lot. Yes, he was very hot-headed when he first joined Formula 1, as a lot of his radio outbursts were. Sometimes it was funny, but sometimes it was just kind of a bit sad, really, to be honest, the way he was having to go at his racing engineer. So I feel like that viewpoint on the whole isn't really that accurate. But even if you think it is, the fact remains that he's never going to get the promotion to Red Bull. He's never going to get that. So for me, that's why Tsunoda probably should be out and trying to get a new drive for 2026. Now, on top of that as well, part of the reason why he was, promoted to AlphaTauri, as it were, in 2021, and why he's kept his seat for so long, part of the reason for that, I think, because remember, back in 22, it was pretty dicey. He was having, in my opinion, he had a pretty bad season in 22, and there were calls from some quarters to get him dropped. He turned it around in 23. I think he was excellent in 23 and 24 as well this season. I think he's been good on the whole too. But part of the reason why he's got that seat is because of the Honda connections. Obviously, he is a Japanese driver. He's the only Japanese driver on the grid. Honda back there, man. And obviously, Red Bull with their powertrain side of things, they are Red Bull powertrains Honda, but not for much longer. Obviously, they're going to partner with Ford for the new regulations that are coming up in 2026. So Honda will no longer be a part of Red Bull's branding and sponsorship sides and stuff like that. For example, Tsunoda has been back in Japan and promoting Honda through some promotional activities, some advertising things, and that's all going to go away, or at least it's not going to be as prevalent. Now, that also will, give him less leverage. Let's say he doesn't have a great season in 25. RB might well get rid of him. Honda doesn't have the leverage of, well, you better keep our driver in there, because they're not going to be a part of the Red Bull organization for 26 onwards. They are, however, going to be the engine suppliers for Aston Martin. And the question always is, it's all well and good saying, oh yeah, Tsunoda needs to leave the Red Bull organization, needs to leave that kind of, the two teams that they've got there in Formula 1. He needs to leave RB after this season, but where's he going to go? And it's difficult, in fairness. I think it's quite tough, because the obvious answer for me would be that Tsunoda goes to Aston Martin. Obviously, they have Fernando Alonso for 2026. I don't know what the contract situation is with Lance Stroll, but for me, getting Tsunoda into that team, and this is not a bold prediction or a bold opinion by any stretch, but for me, Tsunoda is markedly better than Lance Stroll, and he would improve that team. And if they are going to challenge for the World Championship in 2026, when the engine regulations get reset, and I know that might be a bold call, but they've got Fernando Alonso driving the car. They have Adrian Newey designing the car as well. So there is every chance that Aston Martin could produce the best car in 2026. But as we've seen with Red Bull this season, you can have the fastest car or one of the fastest cars, but you need some very good drivers as well. Now, don't get me wrong, Tsunoda is not a world beater, but I would say that honestly, if you get, if he has a decent season next season, I think he could stake a claim to be a number 2 driver at a top team. I really do think he's on that kind of level. Certainly, he's been better than Sergio Perez over the past few seasons. Yeah, I wouldn't say he's on the level of the likes of Carlos Sainz and all that, but for me, honestly, I wouldn't say he's that far off of the likes of George Russell in terms of pace. I really do rate him highly. And again, bold call, I know, but have a look at the results between Tsunoda and Lawson this season while they've been teammates. Tsunoda has outraced Liam Lawson by 4-2 this season. He's outqualified him every single Grand Prix. Now, I think there was actually an engine penalty in there in the United States for Liam Lawson, and there's a few other factors in that as well. I don't think it's quite as one-sided between the two of them, but he can more than hold his own. Anybody, I think, can say that. And over the course of a season, I mean, Tsunoda has scored 30 of RB's 46 points. Now, I know that's not on Liam Lawson entirely, he's not done the whole season, but I think that really does show how much of a quality driver Tsunoda is. So, for me, he could absolutely go to Aston Martin in 2026. It's just about whether Lawrence Stroll is going to bite the bullet and admit the truth that his son is not up to standard, because if Aston Martin lose a 2026 F1 Constructors' Championship because Lance Stroll is in the car, that would do his son even more reputational damage. And this is a guy who has a lot of reputational damage right now. Now, if you have a look at the grid for 2026, there are some seats that are available. At Alpine, for example, Pierre Gasly signed on, but the second seat is still up for grabs. Currently, that is Jack Doohan. There are rumours, of course, about Franco Colapinto going to that team partway through the season, but could Tsunoda do a job there? Yeah, absolutely. And they're going to have Mercedes power units for 2026 as well. So, again, there's a bit of positivity there. Lance Stroll is contracted to Aston Martin for 26, but these contracts can always be changed, particularly when you're the boss's son. That does, of course, help you overall, but at the same time, I think, it makes it easier for things to be changed on the fly, as it were. Not much compensation going Lance Stroll's way for that, I don't think. I can't see that personally. Cadillac is an outside shot. Obviously, they don't have any drivers confirmed for 2026. For me, it's more likely to be a Bottas or a Sergio Perez there. But again, he could do a job there. He could absolutely do a job there. Mercedes is too much of a step up. I don't really see that, to be honest. I see them going with Antonelli and George Russell for the foreseeable future, in all honesty. And if things go pear-shaped with Antonelli, then, Bottas is always there to take up that role, at least on a relatively short-term thing. And aside from that, there's no other seats on the 26 grid that aren't taken up, that aren't, of course, either Racing Bulls or Red Bull Racing. So, yeah, we go, guys. For me, it makes sense for him to go to Aston Martin in 26, if it can happen. I really hope it can. I would love to see Tsunoda in that kind of role. But, yeah, your thoughts in the comments below, guys, because it's a tricky one. It's all well and good saying, oh, yeah, get rid of, get Tsunoda out of the Racing Bulls, get him out of the Red Bull organisation. But admittedly, his options would be pretty limited for 2026. But wherever he goes, it's going to be a risk for both the driver and the team, because he's never driven for another team as well, on top of that. And of course, the engine regulations and the aerodynamic regulations all changing for 26 means that the order could be completely jumbled up. But a bit of a longer video. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below, as always, guys. And of course, keep it tuned here for more news and opinion pieces here on the F1chronicle.com. It may be the Christmas period, it may be the off season right now, but we'll keep you going with more content through this rest of the year, and obviously into 25 as well, guys. So yeah, thanks for all your support. All right, guys, so the 2025 Formula One grid is now set. We know the 20 drivers and we know which 10 teams they are going to be competing for, but I wanted to have a look at the rookies, the inexperienced drivers, the drivers that we don't know very well. Some people won't have even seen these drivers in action at all because they've never competed in Formula One at all. So there's a few different ways to define these rookies. Some people might say, well, you're only a rookie if you can have actually never competed in a Grand Prix weekend before. For me, I'm going to open this up to any driver that has not competed a full season in Formula One, and I'll explain what I mean and why I'm actually going to set that as the criteria for this, just because it opens up things a bit more. That means in total for me there are 6 rookies in the field next year. Some people might say there's 5, some people might even say there's only 3, but let's just get into this, guys, because at the end of the day, a few people have been asking recently, a few people have been suggesting, why don't you go through the rookies in the 2025 grid and say which one will be the most successful? And again, to answer that question, there's a few different ways you can actually interpret it, really. So I'll explain what I mean with that here, guys. So there's a bit of a preview to the 2025 rookies and which one I think will actually be the best next year. So there are 3 outright rookies in the field for 2025. Now, these are guys that have never competed in a Grand Prix weekend before. These being, of course, Gabriel Bortoleto, who will be competing for Sauber, Kimi Antonelli, who will be competing for Mercedes, and also Isaac Hadjar, who will be in the Racing Bull. There are 2 more on top of this as well. Some guys who have only made, well, in Jack Doohan's case, a one-off appearance for Alpine at the back end of 2024, and Ollie Behrman, who's made an appearance for Ferrari and 2 appearances for Haas before. Some people might not consider him a rookie. I would personally, because at the end of the day, he's never competed in a full season, and all those 3 appearances have effectively been 3 off appearances, not 3 one-off appearances. That's the way to phrase it. Obviously, coming in for Saudi Arabia and Ferrari for signs as a surgery and recovering from that. Kevin Magnussen's ban at Haas, and then Kevin Magnussen also being ill in Brazil and having to basically be the super sub 3 times. So yeah, interesting stuff there with Ollie Behrman. And I would also throw in Liam Lawson as well. Now, he's competed in 11 Grand Prix, but these days that is less than half a season, and he's never competed in a full season. He's never started a season actually at a Formula One team. He has come in to replace Nick De Vries, well, Ricciardo twice effectively, actually, because he was the replacement for Ricciardo, who was the replacement for Nick De Vries in 2025 at AlphaTauri, as it was then. Or was it Racing Bulls? No, it was AlphaTauri. That was the last season of AlphaTauri, the second Red Bull team. He'll be in the top Red Bull team, though, this season. So I'll just go into who I think will actually do best in this. Now, again, depending on how you define things, the most successful driver might be the driver that gets the most points, the most podiums, and potentially maybe even a win. And for me, in that sense, just because of the competitiveness of the cars and because of where those cars are on the grid in 24, I don't expect them to change too much going into 25 in terms of their overall performance, because obviously we're looking towards 26 now, where there's the big engine regulation change, the big aerodynamic regulation change as well. That will factor into things, and I don't expect the order to change too much. So basically, if you were one of the top 4 teams in 2024, I'd expect you to be one of the top 4 teams in 2025, and therefore have a realistic shot of a podium and at least an outside shot of a victory. And of course, because of where these teams are, I would say that Kimi Antonelli and Liam Lawson are the most likely drivers to actually get some podiums and maybe even a victory in 2025. Now, given the pace of the cars, I would say Mercedes and Red Bull are on a relatively even playing field at the end of the season. Both those teams were challenging for podiums. I might even argue that the Mercedes was quicker overall. It's only in the hands of Max Verstappen that Red Bull was competitive. Obviously in Sergio Perez's hands it was not, hence why Lawson is in the Red Bull for next year. And with that in mind, I would probably say the guy out of them that's more likely to score more points, potentially is Kimi Antonelli, and it's a bit of a bold call, I know. Lawson is more experienced, but I would say that Red Bull is not looking that good. I feel like it's going to take time for Lawson to get used to the car as well. Probably the same for Antonelli too, in fairness, but he has had a bit more testing experience. He has competed in some free practice sessions for them. I don't know how much testing Lawson's actually done in the Red Bull. I know he's been in the RB for some time, so it's going to be close between them two. It's got to be one of those two, but I will stick my neck out and say that Antonelli will perform better in terms of points overall than Lawson. But again, Lawson's he could well have a better car. It's all about whether Red Bull or Mercedes develop their car better in the off season, and for me, I'm going to back Mercedes to do that. Now, in terms of their overall talent, in terms of their outright performance, taking the car aside, who will perform best, who will be the best out of these guys in terms of their maturity, in terms of their consistency? Well, I'm going to give a mention to Gabriel Bortoleto in this one. Now, I expect Sauber to probably have the worst car on the grid in 2025. They had a little uptick in performance overall towards the end of 24, but I still expect them to be down there at the bottom. I feel like they'll probably still finish bottom of the constructors. 26 is a big opportunity for them to improve, of course, but I see them really struggling to score points. But for me, I think Bortoleto might well be the most consistent, and you might well think, well, at the end of the day, it's not going to be that much of a challenge. You just got to basically make up the numbers, and that's a very negative way to look at things. In your first season of Grand Prix racing, if you're performing consistently, getting the car to the finish, not making that many big mistakes, then you're gonna do all right, and that's all you can really ask for. Bortoleto's going to have Nico Hülkenberg as a teammate. I expect Hulk to, no disrespect to Bortoleto, but Hulk has had an incredible year this year. I expect Hülkenberg to be comfortably better than Bortoleto, and everybody would expect that. Hulk's been in Formula 1 since 2010. By contrast, Bortoleto was about 4 years old at that time when he made his F1 debut. So the age gap is massive between those two. So I think Bortoleto will do quite well in that sense. But again, it depends on how you define things. How are these people going to do compared to their teammates? And that's the second one I'm going to go for. Who's going to do best compared to the teammate? Because the only true comparison of Grand Prix driver is with your teammate. They've got the same machinery, the same opportunities effectively, and who's going to do best? Well, certainly not Liam Lawson. He's going up against Max Verstappen. Verstappen, I expect to beat him quite comfortably. Jack Doohan going up against Pierre Gasly. Gasly, I think, is an incredible season. So I think he's going to struggle quite a bit there compared to Gasly. Again, you'd expect this as a rookie. Hadjar, I mean, I've done a video explaining why I think that Yuki Tsunoda is doing very well, and I think he could well stake a claim to get out of the Red Bull organisation and get a different Formula 1 drive. So I expect Hadjar to struggle a little bit compared to Tsunoda. Antonelli, I mean, he could be one. I could see him maybe challenging George Russell overall for a season, but I think George Russell is really underrated. He did beat Hamilton quite comfortably this season. There was reasons for that, of course, and I've said why many times on this channel, but I'd expect Russell to be on a high going into 25. Bortoleto already established that I expect Hulk to be in quite comfortably. So for me, that really leaves Behrman and Antonelli. Now, for me personally, I'm going to say I don't rate Esteban Ocon. I really don't. There's something about that guy, and I just feel like he turns up for 1 or 2 races a season, gets an incredible landmark result like he did in Brazil this season, like he did at Hungary back in 21 when he got his only ever win. Yes, these are impressive performances, but consistently throughout the season, for me, Ocon was absolutely outperformed, incredibly so, by Pierre Gasly. Gasly being a great driver, but Ocon, for me, by F1 standards, is distinctly average. I think he's a massive downgrade on Hülkenberg, and I don't feel like he's much better than Magnussen, really. I mean, for me personally, I probably would have kept K-Mag over him. Controversial opinion, but I would have kept Kevin Magnussen rather than go for Esteban Ocon. So for me, compared to the teammates, I would back Behrman to do the best. I can see him beating Ocon over the course of a season. All the other guys, it's either going to be nigh on impossible or difficult. I think Antonelli is probably going to be the closest to his teammate in these aside from Behrman, but I think over the course of a season, I feel like Russell would probably have the measure of him. But yeah, those are my thoughts, guys. I think in terms of results, I am personally going to back Antonelli to do the best overall, closely followed by Liam Lawson. And compared to their teammates, I would expect Behrman to impress the most. I think he's the most likely to beat his teammate over the course of a season. And then Antonelli as well, I would say, will be closest-ish second, you know. So yeah, those are my thoughts, guys. I mean, overall, these are all really impressive rookies. You know, Hajar, I think he's incredible on his day for sure. Antonelli is fantastic and he's so young. Same with Bortoleto. I've seen all these guys in F2 or in their performances, their cameo appearances in Formula 1, and I think they're all brilliant, and I'm really excited to see them. This is a fantastic crop of young rookies that are entering the sport. So yeah, your thoughts in the comments below, guys. Who is going to be the most impressive rookie in 2025? I want to hear your thoughts. So a phrase you'll hear a lot in Formula 1, and in truth a lot of different racing series, is left foot braking. Now, if you know how to drive a car on the road, left foot braking is something you would never do. You brake with your right foot, and trust me, if you try to brake with your left foot, which I did once on a driving lesson, it's a very bad idea. Your left foot is a lot heavier when you're not used to using it for the brakes. But in motorsport, that does come in handy. So what is left foot braking and why is it used in Formula 1? Well, left foot braking is a driving technique used in motorsports, particularly F1, where the driver uses their left foot to operate the brake pedal while simultaneously using their right foot to control the throttle. This technique is essential in modern F1 racing due to the absence of a clutch pedal, as all Formula 1 cars now utilize a paddle on the steering wheel to manually operate the clutch. So you'll often see drivers kind of holding the clutch with their right hand on their steering wheel and they'll release it like that. That's usually what you see. You also see some techniques such as what Hamilton and Russell do with the Mercedes. I think, is it the brake magic or something like that they use, where they hold the hand over the wheel like that? There's a few different ways to do it. Either way, there is a loud pedal and a quiet pedal in a Formula 1 car. There is no clutch pedal like you will see in a manual road car. The left foot braking technique allows drivers to optimize their braking performance, enabling them to brake later and more efficiently while cornering. By using their left foot to brake, drivers can more easily modulate the brake pressure, resulting in improved vehicle balance and stability. This technique is particularly advantageous in slow corners and hairpin turns, where precise braking is crucial for maintaining a fast lap time. And one of the good things as well with it too is that it allows for independent control of the braking and acceleration forces, so you're not having to move your foot from one pedal to the other like you would in a road car. Again, not a problem when you're just driving down to the shops, but when you're in a high-speed Formula 1 car trying to go as fast as humanly possible around a circuit for between 90 and 2 hours, 90 minutes and 2 hours I should say, it does make a difference. Those little differences do make a big difference overall when it comes to lap time. So it allows you to press one and then let off the other instantaneously. It's that independent control, not having to swap around all the time. But how does it work? Well, the fundamental principle behind this technique is the separation of braking from the throttle, like I just said. And by dedicating the left foot to the brake pedal and the right foot to the throttle, drivers can modulate the brake pressure without affecting the throttle input and vice versa. This level of control is crucial for optimizing cornering speed and minimizing time loss during braking. As McLaren driver Lando Norris explained a while back, left foot braking is all about feel. You need to be able to apply just the right amount of pressure to the brake pedal while also maintaining the correct throttle input. It's a delicate balance, but when you get it right, it can make a huge difference to your lap times. So like I said, the main advantages of this are the smooth transition between the throttle and the brake pedal. There's also the weight transfer as well, so by making smaller weight transfers and adjustments while cornering, drivers can help the car turn in and better maintain an optimal balance through that. There's also the sensitivity as well. There's never a time when you're not on the pedals, like your foot will always be kind of resting on the pedal without pressing it, so you've got that greater feel there. There's no time when your foot is effectively in just free air between the two pedals there. And also the consistency as well. It'll seem like an alien concept to people who have not raced, not driven go-karts for example, but when you get used to it, it is way better. It makes such a massive difference. It's something that I did when go-karting a while back. It's accelerating, it's scary, but when you get used to it, it's fun for sure. And that kind of leads me on to the negatives of it, because it's not a perfect technique and it's not for everybody, of course, in every kind of scenario. It's harder physically on you and harder mentally too. Now, on the physical side of things as well, it's harder because it requires more physical effort and coordination, as drivers must use both feet independently and simultaneously, and this can lead to increased fatigue, especially during longer races. And you've also got stop the potential for unintended brake applications. So if a driver accidentally applies pressure to the brake pedal while still on the throttle, it can cause the car to lose speed or become unsettled, potentially leading to a loss of control. You know, you'd wear your tyres down a little bit more with that as well. On top of that, you'd use a bit more fuel. I mean, I remember, was it Richard Hammond on Top Gear? He drove a Renault Formula 1 car in the mid-2000s, and they were saying on the data, you know, you got a bit of crossover there. You know, you're pressing the brake pedal and the throttle at the same time there, and that's costing you time. And it was only for like a split second, but they picked it up on the telemetry. And like I said earlier as well, it takes some time to adapt to it, and it's also a bit of personal preference in there as well. And the thing is as well, like, not everybody's been happy with it going back. I mean, every driver does it now, I believe. I don't think there's any Formula 1 driver that doesn't, but drivers such as Rubens Barrichello, you know, he was not a big fan of it at first. It was something he didn't used to do, again, because, you know, back in those days with Formula 1 cars, when he first started and when he was going for the junior careers, they had clutch pedals, they had manual gearboxes in the cars back then, so he would have been used to that. But when he came to F1, he didn't have that. It was an automatic gearbox pretty much for everybody, and indeed it was for everybody. By 95, I think, was the last one that had a manual gearbox, the 40, which was not a particularly good car during that time. Barrichello said the following on it at the time as well. He said, "I was one of the last drivers to switch to left foot braking. It took me a while to adapt and feel comfortable with the technique. I had been racing with right foot braking for so long that it felt more natural to me. But once I got used to it, I could feel the advantages in terms of braking precision and car control. It's not an easy technique to master, but it's essential in modern F1, and even more so now." And I believe Johnny Herbert and Martin Brundle, definitely Herbert because of his accident, but I think both of those guys never used to do left foot braking. Johnny Herbert because of his accident, and I believe Brundle because of an accident too, perhaps. I'm not too sure, but there have been examples in relatively modern times where they haven't done it, and it has cost them time, but they were still really quick Formula 1 drivers at the end of the day. So yeah, there we go, guys. Left foot braking, if you're wondering what it was before, now you know. There's a full explainer article as well over on the F1Chronicle.com. If you want to check that out, please do, of course, if you haven't already. And yeah, we'll see you soon for some more F1 explainer videos, some more F1 content here on the F1Chronicle.com. Have a good one, guys, and Merry Christmas.